I'm Ashton Addison from Blockwest Capital for Investment Pitch Media, and today on the Crypto Coin Show, we have Ganesh Swami, co-founder and CEO of Covalent. Ganesh, welcome to the show, and thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us today.
Ashton, the pleasure is all mine.
Amazing. Well, let's dive straight into it. A lot's going on in the industry. Even in the bear market, I feel like I know you guys are working heads down super hard on the future of DeFi and connecting all these projects together in a super important way. Let's just break open the conversation with just a high-level overview of the solutions you and your team have built at Covalent and what you're working on, and then we'll dive into everything else.
Sure, Ashton. So before I jump into Covalent, I think bear markets are a gift for builders because you know exactly what did not work during the previous bull market, and then you sit down and fix those issues. Now, this is not our first time through a bear market. This is our second time through the bear market. So the code that most of the industry work uses today on Covalent is code that we wrote in the previous bear market. So it's definitely an opportunity. I think it's a gift. And these gifts don't come that often in an industry. So with that as a pretext, Covalent is an indexing solution for blockchain data. So what we offer today is a unified API that enables developers to pull out balances, positions, historical granular transaction activity for any kind of like upstream use case. So we power about 3,000 apps in the space, about 30,000 devs use this API, and all kinds of products like wallet products. So if you use Rainbow Wallet, that uses Covalent, all kinds of like NFT products like Ledger, all kinds of taxation products. So yeah, there's just 1 billion possibilities that you can enable with the Covalent API. So that's Covalent in a nutshell.
Very cool. And obviously, with the blockchain, there's a lot of information that's on chain, a lot of numbers and data that sort of needs to be turned into information and to be analyzed. I'm curious on, you mentioned there building your solutions in the previous bear market. How did you first come about building solutions for data, and sort of what got you interested in data on the blockchain?
Great question. So even before Covalent, I've always been in the data space in my career. So I know, at least from experience, from just what I've seen in the industry, is that products like Covalent are critical infrastructure pieces before you can enable or adopt any technology cycle. So this is just a given. I lived through that initial on-prem workloads moving to the cloud. So this is about a decade ago. So I'm just bringing that perspective into these crypto networks. So yes, we did build ahead of time. When we started building Covalent out in 2018, there was no NFTs. I mean, there was CryptoKitties, but it wasn't really a thing. There's no DeFi, there's no GameFi, there's no like social tokens. None of these things existed. And this is why we decided to build a horizontal platform and really be an indexed solution on all of the applications of blockchain, rather than being a DeFi analytics tool or a GameFi analytics tool. So here, it's a lot harder to pull off, but we had all the time in the bear market to build a technology that scales across the use cases.
Very cool. And with all of this information, most of it, if not all of it, is like already publicly available information, whether it's on the blockchain or somewhere else. How do you utilize Covalent's technology to bring a competitive advantage and something unique over others that could also use the same information?
So our target audience is a developer or an analyst who doesn't really care about how data got onto the blockchain in the first place. They just want to live in their favorite tools like Excel or Tableau, any kind of BI tool, and just analyze and go through their work without the retooling or the retraining. So that's our target audience. And so with that as a context, as a pretext, if you need to extract data from a blockchain today, you have to go through the tedious task of running these blockchain nodes, extracting the data, putting the data into a database, cleaning that data, gathering other kinds of external information pieces, because not everything is on the blockchain. For example, crypto prices, a lot of the price discovery happens on centralized exchanges. So you need those crypto prices so they can price the assets, things like logos, things like, what these contracts mean, what these contract names mean, a lot of the semantic information. So all of that is off chain. So there's a sequence of steps you can do before you have something that's usable. Now, for a company that just wants to, perform a job and they want to hire someone to perform that job, taking on the risk of building the solution in-house and hiring and training the people, the build versus buy equation goes more along the buy rather than the build situation. So that's really where we're going with the Covalent solution.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. It's a lot of work, and even just trying to run your own node, I feel like is too much work for most people. So thank you for creating a solution like this. And now, as you mentioned, when you started developing the solutions initially, there wasn't all of these different industries, and even now, like NFTs have really expanded out, social tokens, and even now, I feel like there's more use cases that are popping up and sort of becoming their own standalone niche industries inside of crypto, and will continue to gain more use cases as it continues to grow. It's such an emerging industry. How can people utilize this data, or why is it valuable to have data like the information that's in Covalent in an emerging industry that's growing this quickly?
So the big unlock that data does is that it backs your gut. It's almost like, if you look at a flight controller panel, like the cockpit, you see that a pilot has probably over 24 dials with all kinds of readings that comes in. And so the pilot is able to assess all of that information in real time and use that in their decision-making process. Today, most industries move so fast that you can't really wait around and come up with a gut feeling and then go after it, investing your time and resources without getting the feedback loops, without understanding if your thing is working. So this is where data becomes crucial, especially real-time data. So we extract and scrape the data from the blockchain as soon as it lands on the blockchain. So you get fresh, hot off the oven data that helps in your decision-making process. A lot of the enterprises will just not adopt technologies if you don't have the reporting and the compliance layer, and all of that is data, because they need to ensure that their stakeholders are kept satisfied.
Great point, Ganesh. And I feel that's especially important with price data. As a news account, we've posted anything about Bitcoin or cryptocurrency prices, and if it's even 1 day old, there's backlash from the community. I'm like, that was yesterday's news. We need like minute by minute analysis. So I feel like having real-time data is most important, especially in an emerging industry and one moving as quickly as cryptocurrency.
Absolutely.
Now, speaking of sort of price trends and real-time data surrounding that, is there a way that end users or companies are using Covalent for pricing, or to follow market trends and market analysis in the movement of Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, and their prices?
So we haven't seen too much of that just yet, but I think this is going to be a major unlock going forward. So if you think about the industry reports that companies are expected to publish every quarter if they're public, and these are called 10Qs, where they talk about the business, they talk about a lot of the core like performance indicators, they talk about management's overview of the business. Now you can have these reports up and running on the blockchain literally every 15 seconds, because that's how fast these blockchains are. So imagine a report which is like a balance sheet or a income statement or a cash flow statement that is produced every 15 seconds and is always fresh, and the data can be trusted. Now that is a whole new world of business. So now what you can do is you can connect that utility to the actual price of that asset, because you can build really interesting valuation models like discounted cash flow analysis and back the utility with the future valuation of the network. So the networks that we work with today are very nascent. Bitcoin clearly has a very clear use case. Bitcoin is a little bit different. It's going after that sovereign money use case. I think you can look at other total addressable markets like gold as an example, as a proxy to imagine how big the market could be. But in cases like productive assets like Covalent or Ethereum, there's actual work being performed behind the scenes. So you would have to price it just like you would price any kind of productive system, like a factory. Then you have workers coming in, and you have cost of materials, and you have downtime in your machinery, and so on. So that's roughly how you would think about these things. It's I think we were still very early in these things playing out, but that's where the industry is leading to. I'm very excited for that new world where you can connect the dots from the utility, from the usage to the actual price of the assets.
I agree, Ganesh, and I completely understand when you say that we're early, and I feel like in the future, all of these different blockchains, which have different speeds, different costs, they will work together a whole lot better. We're pretty early on where there's a lot of isolated information, and even transferring information from or assets from one blockchain to another requires either a centralized exchange or some bridge that doesn't work well. With Covalent's information, you're able to pull data from all of these different blockchains, and you also spoke about the main use cases for developers. Can they use that on any blockchain that they like, or are there any limitations in the ways in which they can use this information?
So currently the API is built mostly for EVM chains, and the industry has taken a turn where most of the popular blockchains are all based on a technology called EVM, which stands for the Ethereum Virtual Machine. So here, if you look at all of the major blockchains, so obviously Ethereum is based on the Ethereum Virtual Machine. But if you look at Polygon, if you look at Avalanche, Phantom, Binance Smart Chain, all of those are EVM chains. So Covalent today primarily works with mostly EVM chains. The non-EVM chains like Near and Solana, we have rudimentary support for it, but it's not. We haven't spent or invested the 10,000 hours that it takes to become an expert with the EVM. So we've done that with EVM chains. We have a history of working with these technologies. On the non-EVM chains, every non-EVM chain is a little bit bespoke. So Near is a little different from Solana. So we have to reinvest that time, and we just haven't put the time in just yet. But there's work ongoing into that investment. But today, developers can come in. We support about 40 different blockchains. You can go to our documentation and see what chains are supported. And we're very aggressive in indexing new chains. In Q2 of this year, we indexed 8 new chains. And Q3 is looking to be a much bigger quarter. So I think there's like 12 chains that are coming online. So we have 40 chains, and 12 of those chains that will lead us to 52 will be just from this quarter. So you can see, bear market doesn't apply to builders. That's my message.
Very cool. I like it, Ganesh. And that sort of leads me into the bigger picture for the roadmap. And, is it just adding more chains, or what is the main focus in terms of growth for Covalent and just the overall solutions to put them into the market more?
Yeah, so there's a 5-year roadmap, and then there's a 2-year roadmap. Let's talk with the 5-year roadmap. I have more conviction in this space today than I had, I would say, even 3 years ago, right? So I've been building in this space for a while. And I think the number of orthogonal use cases that are coming online is just incredible. So it's not a singular bet that you're betting on blockchain networks' success, right? It's not just DeFi, it's not just NFTs, but it's DeFi and or NFTs and or GameFi and or social tokens and or central bank digital currencies and or other kinds of use cases like semi-private chains, right? So the list just goes on. And if you just take any of these single applications, let's take GameFi for example. Gaming today is a massive industry. It's even bigger than the movie industry, right? So games, a percentage that moving into the blockchain, very, very exciting. So we're in talks with multiple, AAA and AA studios that are looking to add a blockchain component to them. So I think that's really, really interesting. The fintech DeFi merge is super exciting. So applications like Robinhood adding a crypto wallet, that's a huge unlock. So that's why I'm super bullish, right? All of these things will take a couple of years to roll out. And, it's I'm not concerned. The use cases are here. The use cases are growing. The use cases are unimaginable what's going to be in the future. So that's in the 5-year roadmap. In the 2-year roadmap, I think we have a lot of work on the Covalent side, right? It's too early to do victory laps. If you look at the bigger picture of number of developers, just the developer ecosystem, there's 30 million devs in the entire space. This is what you see on GitHub or Stack Overflow. Scaling back, the blockchain space has about 300,000 devs today. That's 1% of the market. Covalent has 30,000 devs. That's 0.1% of the market. So in this journey to get blockchain data accessible on this mission, we haven't even left our couch to put our shoes on. That's how early we are. So no one really is making victory laps at Covalent. It's so early. So we have a long way to go before we can call this industry and Covalent a success. So that's in the 2-year frame. So we are building a lot of stuff. At the same time, we're rebuilding the underlying infrastructure behind Covalent. We have introduced the world's first cryptographically secure blockchain pipeline, which means that the data that you get from the Covalent API is secured by cryptography. And it's not just like, trust me, bro, or something like that, right? You're not looking to one of the big fours for attestations. You've outsourced all of that trust component to cryptography and mathematics. So this is really exciting. It's still going to take a couple of years to pan out. But now, government reports, all kinds of, nonprofit reports, you don't have to trust anyone. You don't have to go to a big four and get their stamp of approval. This is cryptographically secure data that comes from the blockchain. So this is a huge unlock that is yet to be seen. So I'm very excited about that. And that's the underlying Covalent infrastructure.
That's incredible, Ganesh. And I'm super excited for that, about, and as well as you mentioned about the real-time reports and having real-time data. I feel like when we look at reports now, any report that's been printed, the moment you print it, the information just continues to get older minute by minute. And if we can have real-time reports that integrate real-time prices with all the calculations that everyone's made to sort of always be up to date, I feel like that's definitely part of the future. And as you mentioned about having 0.1% of the devs sort of working with Covalent and on these blockchain technologies, I feel like, my question to you actually is, do you think that the way that these blockchains are set up right now, primarily with EVM running Solidity and with Solana on Rust and these other technologies, do you see that as a limiting barrier to entry on why there aren't 30 million devs working in blockchain? Or what's the greatest limitation currently of why blockchain devs are not moving faster into the industry?
Ashton, this is a very complicated question, right? So I would go back to parallels in history. So there's the applications versus the infrastructure. So it always goes in cycles. When the initial airplanes were built, there were no airports. You didn't have any of the infrastructure. You didn't require any of the infrastructure. But once the planes started to get more sophisticated, you needed the infrastructure with airports. And airports built better planes and back and forth. So now, some of the most advanced planes can only use certain airports because that's where the features are. It's almost like a Tesla can go only to electric charger to charge. It's not a gas station, right? So the infrastructure needs to be built out. So what we're seeing today with the applications and the infrastructure, it's a seesaw motion. So the infrastructure steps up to serve the applications. And in a bull market, what happens is the applications push the infrastructure to the max, and the infrastructure breaks, and the application fails. And so what happens is that builders go back and rebuild the infrastructure, and then the next era of applications come in. So this is going to happen a couple of times. So I don't think we are at the application phase yet. We're not going to see, the millions of users. Just to give this in context, the biggest game in GameFi on the blockchain only has 5,000 daily active users. Now, if someone as a hobby puts an application on the Apple App Store as an iOS game, you're going to see 100,000 devs, 100,000 gamers just on day one, right? So that's 5,000 is really, really small. And that's because the underlying infrastructure doesn't scale, so the games are not here yet, right? So yeah, so it's a balancing act. I think it's going to go back and forth. It'll never be like one flip of a switch, and then you have millions of users, right? It's going to be a gradual process, and then these advancements, these improvements are incremental, but they compound, and then it's slowly and then suddenly, right?
I love that analogy. That's super cool to think about. And you're right. Every bear market, last bear market, there wasn't all of these great NFT and DeFi use cases. And then it came through and it's exploded too quickly. And now we're sort of back to the building phase. And who knows what's coming in the next bull market and all the great new industries that will join and extra value created. So I'm looking forward to that. For devs and people in general that want to find out more about Covalent, the information, the APIs available, what's the best way for them to start getting involved with you guys?
Yeah, so the best place would be our website. So you can go to covalenthq.com, and then it has sections if you're a developer, if you're an analyst, if you're a network operator, you want to be a part of the Covalent network. So it has funnels for all of those kinds of users. And then we're also very active on Twitter. And then me personally, my Twitter handle is Ganesh with a 5, so GANE5H. My DMs are open, so if you want to chat tech, startups, funding, applications, I'm always game. I love getting the cold DMs. I get a lot of value from them. There's also a lot of abuse that goes on with these open DMs, but sometimes the little gems that you see outweighs the bad.
Very cool. And yeah, we're still working on a blockchain solution for Twitter and socials, but hopefully the next round of devs will work through that. Thank you so much, Ganesh. I'm going to leave the website link and the socials you mentioned as well in the description box below to make it easy for the viewers. All the best with everything Covalent moving forward, and let's follow up in the near future.
Ashton, thank you for the time. This is really fun.